Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with Tia and Jill. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We're so glad you
Happy
could be here. As you can
Monday.
see, we have a special guest with us, Paula Schwarz. So good
Welcome,
to have you
Paula.
here, Paula.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Well,
We
we
are
love that
too.
we're so glad that you're kicking off your Monday morning with us.
Mm-hmm,
So thank you for that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if this is your first time joining us, I'm Tia. This is Jill, our special guest, Paula. And every Monday, we go live on YouTube talking about things that's happening in the food industry, having real conversation, honest conversations about people leading in food. And today's topic is all about react, recover, repeat, right? Like we're all in this circle of we react, we recover, and then we repeat. And why it's failing you, right? And for material, which is Paula's, and maybe your passion, your passion around foreign material, like I'm going to really enjoy this conversation today because in the food industry, it's one of the clearest examples of how reactive our industry still is. And it costs us from a culture standpoint, from a financial standpoint, even from an emotional standpoint. So we're so excited to have you here today. Paula is actually at Flexxray, that is a leader in foreign material recovery and prevention, and someone that really we've had the pleasure of knowing. And Jill, you've had the pleasure of working with personally.
Yes, I have. So Paula and I have, I guess we go back years from not only working together, but also Paula was our technical rep for when she was at Mary U, and then I joined Mary U. She I want to say, did you recruit me? I was thinking back, like, how did I get there?
Sort of, yes.
Like, I think I don't remember if you called me to say, hey, there's a job open, or if I called you and was like, hey, I'm ready to leave. Is this job something you'd recommend? I don't remember how that flowed, but
I think what happened was you called me. You're like, hey, should I do auditing? I'm like, hey, no, you should come work with me instead.
And that worked out.
Yeah, it did.
it
Mm-hmm.
did. Yes. And we were talking about this last week at the prep call. Like, it's so funny because I literally, like, I can close my eyes and I can see us at that little table having breakfast, like the first time you were kind of showing me the ropes. And like,
That's exactly what happened. But for everybody in the audience, that was my first introduction to even the thought of professional coaching or whatever. And I tell Jill this all the time, and I'll probably tell her until we're too old to talk to each other that was very pivotal in my career because I didn't jump on the coaching bandwagon then, but I see how important it is. And whether you have a mentor, a coach, if you're the mentee or you hire somebody outside or you have some sort of that kind of opportunity within your own organization, I just think it's so valuable. And when I started my career, certainly that wasn't a thing. I had mentors and mentee. I was a mentee for sure. And they weren't like paid or formal or whatever, but I had those people. And I think everybody does. And so Jill, I will always appreciate that. And when I talk to Jill and Tia both, I just tell them how awesome I think that is that they have this platform and they're using it to, help people on all levels. And so I appreciate it and thank you guys for that a lot.
Oh, we appreciate you.
yes. Well, and I think it's really cool because, obviously our part of what we do is like, how do we help people have more success professionally, personally, all of it, like taking care of your whole being, well-being, because we know there's plenty of papers and data that shows when we take care of people, they take care of business.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a huge passion for us, which really is a little bit about today too, and foreign material.
Yes.
Yes. But I do want to start off, and I don't know if this is if this is the correct stat. So you can certainly correct me, but now it's actually been 2 weeks, right, at IPPE, when Flexxray was sharing kind of the state of the union report on foreign material. And I believe Kurt said something that like 72%, I think is the number that sticks with me, of companies have dealt with a foreign material issue in the past quarter alone.
That's correct.
Okay, is that correct? Because I was like, that's a lot, but I was also like, I would say there's even more that deal with it way more than just on a quarterly basis.
For sure. And this was a customer survey that we did. So of course it was people that, we ask that work with us and are comfortable. But I like to start out conversations when I'm talking to a customer or I'm in a big room like we were at IPPE and like, hey, think about the last time you had a foreign material incident. And if, you start asking people to raise their hands or think about the last time they had it, we're going to get many more hands than just quarterly. So usually I start with quarterly and then we go to monthly and then we go to, weekly and, those kind of things. And it really puts into perspective that you're not the only ones. And whether it's, blue plastic gloves or it's a metal contamination or something else, these things happen. And, the whole subject of this is react, recover, repeat. Well, how are you, is it a reaction, just like it was last time, or what are we doing different, or is this preventable? So thinking about that, and I, frequently will see if somebody in the audience wants to share about something that's happened to them recently, or if not, I tell them two different examples. One's when I worked for a restaurant chain and a situation we had, and another one was when I was actually a QA manager in a plant. So both of those, when I start telling those stories, then people are a little more open to, sharing or at least contributing to the conversation about, hey, this happened to me. This is what I needed to do. And I think that's really important in food safety, that we're all just here to help and improve. Because when somebody has a recall, and I was actually talking to a customer about this Friday, when somebody has a recall, it doesn't matter if it's your company or somebody else's, it has negative effects on all of us. Mm-hmm. And so even though Flexxray is an inspection service, third party, we want you to do better. We want you to get better. We want less incidences. And some of my customers tell us, hey, it's our job to run you out of business, which I laugh about, but I understand that. And the other thing is they'll come to us and say, hey, our goal is to reduce foreign material by 30% for this year. And I think that's an awesome goal. And we can see those results within customers when they do different things. And we're really interested in, how they're going to approach that, what they're going to do. And, if there's really a way we can help them. But at the end of the day, these things still happen. And, are you prepared for it? Have you done the right things? But when anybody calls me, I always remind them to thank and appreciate whoever actually did their job and put something on hold or raise their hand or whatever, because 20 some years ago when I was in a plant, reporting something like that maybe wasn't as championed as it is now. It was like, hey, somebody messed up and we're going to point fingers. And I think, something you guys really hone in on is food safety culture and leadership and all of those things. And so depending on the plant you're in or the organization you work for, some of companies are really great at this and some of them still have, some improvement. So if you have something on hold, be happy about that it's contained, and then we can hopefully help you work through the situation versus it got beyond your control and now what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, because that is exactly what you're talking about. That speaks to culture, right? How do people respond to having an incident straight, like in the immediate response, right? Of someone saying, hey, we have a foreign material issue. We need to stop the line. We need to put product on hold. How are they responding there? And to your earlier point, how are they responding now that they found it? What things are they putting into place to ensure it doesn't happen again? Or are they reacting, recovering, repeating?
Well,
no, for sure.
We have so much more awareness around this, around foreign material, and we have better technology to help us find foreign material. And you're in the thick of it every day, kind of working with this and with clients. So I'm curious, even from your perspective, since we do have this increased awareness, like what is it that you think this tells us about our industry and how we even view foreign material, that we keep having it, or 72% of companies say I've had foreign material in the past quarter.
So a little bit like I was just talking about, I think we're doing better. And I think there's a heightened awareness around foreign material. It depends on the company for sure and what the foreign material is. And like I said, some of our customers will straight out tell us, hey, we want to get 20 or 30% better. And in some of those instances, hey, they have improved 30% on their customer complaints. So that part of it looks better, but they're still having the same amount of incidences in-house, but they're able to contain it so it doesn't get to the next step. So even though we haven't necessarily fixed the foreign material issue, in the facility, they're doing the things better, one step ahead. So they're still working backwards to, hey, can we prevent this foreign material incident or whatever, but it's not getting out of our control, or we're not having a customer complain. So in my mind, as somebody from the outside, when my customer tells me that, they're winning on a level, but they want to win, still at the preventative measure.
Right.
And so there's a couple of things with that. First of all, I think, humans are still involved.
Mm-hmm.
And if we know that, things are going to happen, not everything's going to be perfect, no matter how, many programs and procedures and things you have in place, they still have to be executed. You still have to do, audits or checks, watch videos, do, line checks as a supervisor, as a QA, person. Are people doing what they're supposed to do? It starts with GMPs. And, you want to say all this stuff starts with leadership, which I think is huge. But, and it does need to start from the top down. Like, people need, it needs to be bought in by your operations manager, your operations VP, those kind of people, your maintenance team, all that. But at the same time, you need to empower the employees to do the right thing and, have them own it, because you don't have to have a title to be a leader. You don't have to have a title to find a foreign material or speak up when something happens. So again, there's lots of pieces to that. And if everybody owns their piece, that's important. I was actually talking to a customer last week, and we were talking about possibly coming into their facility and not necessarily doing an audit, but just kind of a third set of eyes and talking about foreign material with a group of people, and then going on the floor and doing this. But she said, she goes, I have these great ideas, but I sit here in this office and I don't know what these people are experiencing every day. And so she goes, it might be really beneficial if, you all talk to them and see if you're getting a different response than, I do, or somebody, on her team does, but that's at a higher level. And I think that's a really good thing. And I think if you've been through an audit and those kind of things, when you talk to the people really doing the job, you get a much better perspective on what's happening. And I think you need to take those comments and observations into effect, after if you've had the incident already, you're kind of in the thick of it, and you're wanting to figure out, can we save this product? What do we need to do at the moment? But then when you go back and you do, post-op of the situation, and you look at those things, that's where you start your real preventative program versus a reactive program. Because even when, you're in the thick of it, whether you're doing a root cause analysis or you're doing an investigation or all those things, you're still in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. And
everybody's trying to get a pretty quick answer right now. And I think it's, on all levels, if you can go back and evaluate the situation and look at all the pieces post, and then, hey, what can we do moving forward? And what parts of this are really preventable, and what of them are, hey, this is the situation and this is where now this is where we want to be. I think that gives you a good starting point of beginning the process of being proactive versus reactive. If that makes any sense at all.
So what I hear when you talk about, people that you've seen and clients you've worked with that are more reactive, maybe they're not going back and doing that root cause analysis? Is that what you see?
So, I think everybody does a root cause analysis, but are we checking the boxes to complete the paperwork, or are we doing root cause analysis to get a different result? And I think that's where the difference is on companies that have reduced their foreign material by 30% in the last year versus the ones that we've heard this multiple times from customers using us as a crutch. Hey, we're gonna check the boxes, but if it goes bad, we'll just send it to Flexxray. Hey, which we love. We love your business. That is great.
Thank you.
But if you want to get better, there's something to look at. And something we're really pushing is, supplier verification, supplier monitoring, supplier approval programs. And a lot of companies have these on the micro side. You have a salmonella spec or expectation, you have a listeria, expectation, or you have testing results that you won't accept product until you have, those results from your customer and things. And I feel like the foreign material side of this, in terms of supplier approval, monitoring, all the things, is probably 10 to 15 years behind the micro side. But when you look at the situation, foreign material is the third leading cause of recalls, right behind micro and allergens in the food industry. So why is management looking at this different? I don't know I don't feel like FSQA is looking at it as differently as, procurement, operations, and those kind of things, but you really need to evaluate the situation, and are these suppliers really causing you a problem? And if you would have done some preventative inspection or approval prior to this, how much product could you have saved? I currently have a situation going on with a chicken company, and it was a seasoning supplier, and we have a very large amount of product that we're inspecting right now. And had we just inspected the seasoning, the scope would have been much, much smaller. And so when you think about those type of situations, hey, does it make sense to check on somebody monthly or quarterly as a preventative program versus a reactive program? I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve and get better in terms of those type of things. So
that's interesting.
Are we getting better? Yes, but there's really some kind of pretty easy ways to at least start collecting some data and monitoring those things to see if that could also improve your foreign material incidences, and how quickly and by how much.
Yeah. That's almost like a whole nother level of adding on verification or validation of your risk assessment.
Yes.
Because I think foreign material, depending on the industry you're in, depending on where you go to for your sources on that, sometimes we forget about combing through the ones that we internally see to say, what actually is the risk, whether it's an incoming material or in this process that we have seen. Well, and kind of what you've talked about kind of reminds me of this place, or I don't know if it's attitude or spot, where we almost kind of accept foreign material and woo, we found it.
Yeah.
But that's really different than preventing.
Right.
I love the example you used where we prevented it from getting to a customer, but we still had it going on internally.
And even that's money, right? Money, labor, rework, all the above. Extra money if you need to send it out, all the above. When you think about the extra touch points around food that maybe we didn't need if we had prevented, the issue.
No, and I think one example that comes kind of the top of my mind on this is the pet food industry, because they get a lot more bulk ingredients, in terms of soybeans and corn and chicken meal and all those things. And I've seen what comes in on those trucks, and they're bulk. So if I'm going to help somebody out in that, it has to be a bag product. But they have put kind of a coalition around this, and they did some really great work. But one of the things they even were talking about internally was, when we find it, we're not giving the supplier all the information they need, related to the foreign material that they found. So, documenting or investigating, where exactly it's coming from versus, hey, we got a load of, chicken meal and we found some, metal hooks in it or something, versus, hey, this is the lot, this is the production, like all the pieces that really help you do an investigation. And so I think that's key. And it goes back to root cause analysis. Like, are you doing a real investigation to find the real information that will help you make decisions that you can put other things in place or change the way you're doing something, all of those kind of things. And there's so many pieces of it. But if you start with gathering it, even when we get questions from customers, we rarely get, all the information that is needed to, pallet information, production, like all the things that you need to do a proper investigation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tia.
Well, I'm curious, like, even as you talk about that, I think that shines a light on if you're being proactive or reactive, right? Like, is that information readily available for people to be able to find and collect, right? I almost think about it like, is it wrapped up in a bow that you can find that information? Or is it tedious to go find? Is it not in a spot where you can easily find it? Is it buried in a handwritten, right, check that you've done a couple of weeks ago? Like, is it easily accessible? And I think sometimes that leans organizations to being more reactive because they really don't have the systems in place to kind of help people document and find this information when it's needed.
I completely agree. And a couple of things on that, if you have gamble walks, those are really important. People following your preventative maintenance programs. And if there is a failure, looking at, hey, was this on PM? Was it followed? Or is it one of those things that, hey, we had to run, this Saturday, so we didn't do it and it didn't get re-put back on the list? Are the pieces of gaskets or different pieces of equipment, are they the ones that are actually detectable if there is a problem, things like that? But the other thing that I hear over and over is if operations are put in charge of reporting these situations instead of FSQA, they own the problem. And if they have to report that, on a big call on Monday morning to, the president or, the VP of whatever, on their ownership of the foreign material, then you get a lot more buy-in from these other groups. In FSQA, I used to say when I was in the plant, we were the police. And I still feel like that's probably right, but you really don't want to be the police. You just want to be the people there to verify or validate that everybody else is doing their job. And you don't want to catch people. You want, to be there to help and support, which is, really the job of a police officer anyway, to keep everybody safe. And FSQA should be the same thing. It shouldn't be like an, oh, I got you kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we like to think about it. It's not really policing, it's partnering, right? We're partnering with you to make sure that, right, we're making safe, quality food. And we're here to help supply that support. And I think that also goes back to what you were talking about earlier on just empowering others to speak up and to say, hey, I see this issue going on. It reminds me of one time when a temporary stopped the line because she saw these really tiny metal flakes on the product. And it turned into actually a really big thing where we ended up having to shut down and taking the filler apart. Like it became a really big thing. And I remember afterwards, she was like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, you did your job. You did your job. And if you see anything else, I need you to say something, right? Like, and no one gave her any problems about it, but I remember she felt so bad that when I circled back around during sanitary, we had to go down and clean. Like it was a big thing. And she was like, I'm so sorry, Tia. And I'm like, no, like this is exactly what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to bring those things up. Like you're our eyes out here. Like I'm not going to ever see that. Like you are, because you do the checks, you run the product. And she was a temporary, and she was like, eventually she came on full time. And I mean, she's an amazing employee. But it's one of those things when you talk about empowerment and really getting down to root cause, everyone must feel that way, right? Everyone must feel like I can stop the line, I can start the conversation, right? We maybe even said, this is one filler head we need to take out, and everything was fine, right? And that was it. But it's like, you never really know. And when I'm hearing you talk about your clients, that some are more proactive than others, some lean into empowering others, it reminds me of that situation where anyone feels like, hey, I can call out an issue. And then that next step of, well, we're going to find out what is really causing this issue so we don't have it again.
I think that is amazing. And I hope that, like, you told the whole world that she did that, because my one foreign material incident, somebody reported it to the supervisor, and the supervisor didn't make the right decision. And that's why we had foreign material in restaurants. And so it was a very big thing. But like, telling these people, hey, you found this, and this prevented this much more product from being affected or having to be thrown away or wasted or all the things. And if you can materialize that for them, say, hey, this person did this, and yeah, we had 100,000 pounds on hold, but if we waited till the next the next check or the end of the shift or whatever, it would have looked like this. Mm-hmm. And this is how much. So, making it real always resonates with people. And I think I'm just like, I think that's amazing that you have that story you can tell people, because that will make an impact on them rather than just do your checks, report it to the supervisor, right. The whole, it doesn't make it real until it's real.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, being on the other side, coming from meat, often if there was foreign material, what that meant is, we're going to have to go through all that meat and try to visually inspect it ourselves. And then that's going to mean overtime or a Saturday. And I wish we had, like back in the day, a Flexxray to be able to help us, because those were things that just made it painful. And without a culture of support, I don't want to say made it easy, but when people are deciding between, am I going to have my weekend to do my thing or go see my family, and I don't think it's a really big deal, they're going to choose, that's an environment that we've created where it can make that choice hard. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means we've not put them in a good spot to be able to make an easy choice.
Right. Yeah.
So Paula, that leads me to wonder, because there's still a lot of companies that will be like, well, we're just going to try to rerun it through our own equipment, or we're going to try to re-inspect it. And I wonder, like, what do you notice about companies you're working with? Like, how do they, I don't know if normalize is the right thing, but kind of normalize to say, gosh, if this does happen, we know running it back through our process, whatever that may look like, isn't necessarily the answer. And
we talk about this. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Are you doing the same thing and expecting the same results? I mean, it goes back to just that simple thought. But like you were just saying, oh, if I choose this, then I have to come in on Saturday, and I'm going to give it paid overtime, but I don't want to be here. So is the attitude of your employees doing the re-inspection, is it where it should be? Are they actually trained to do what you're asking them to do? Like maybe you have an inline X-ray machine and you're asking them to rerun it through the same machine, and they don't really know what they're looking for. They're just going through the motions. I use this example when we were in the micro world, Jill, but hey, you want to have your own lab, but you're good at making chicken. Make your chicken, let us do the lab work. It's the same thing with X-ray. We're good at what we do. Let us help you. And even if your machines have the capability of, detecting same or similar levels than ours, you're running at a production speed. I tell everybody we're TSA for food. So when your suitcase goes through the x-ray machine at the airport and the guy is sitting there at the screen inspecting it, that's what we're doing with your case of food. We're trained to do that. We're doing it that slow. We can see it at 0.8 millimeters or less. So if you want to get different results from the same environment, you're probably setting yourself up for failure.
So what is it that helps drive companies to say we are like, let's use a third party like Flexxray? Because we know there's certainly challenges. Is it because, and there's going to be expense with it, but there's also this one, like we're not effective internally, potentially, of doing it, or we don't have the capacity. Is it sustainability? Like, what do you notice about these companies or leaders that say, we're gonna look for some additional help?
It totally depends on different situations and different companies, but sustainability is huge. Can we save product? Can we send good product still to the customer? How fast we can get your stuff inspected. So we can do a truckload in 4 to 6 hours. It might take you an entire day to do,
Right. Yeah.
part of a line shift. Third party results for your customer is going to be probably a lot more substantiated than, hey, we hired Freddie to come in on Saturday and watch the line, and we're not confident in the results. Again, customer reputation. And then usually we see an ROI of 80 to 90% of what the customer value of the product is. And so if you can save that much product, let's say you have $100,000 worth of product and you get to sell $90,000 worth of it versus throwing $90,000 of it away, that's pretty big incentive, financially, outside of all the food safety reasons and sustainability reasons. So there's lots of reasons to do this, and at least evaluate if a third-party inspection makes sense. But we also have, different technology, and we can see a lot of different things that perhaps, your inline machines can't, or your metal detectors or magnets or those things can't find outside of metal. And we do have, beyond X-ray, we have CT technology, which is actually 3D. And so we've had a lot of luck doing gaskets and denser hard plastics and things like that. But outside of that, we also see glass and rocks and metal, of course. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to get your sample in and let us tell you what our capabilities are versus you just assuming we can't see it.
So as you're saying all those things, it reminds me of when I was on the hospital committee board and we talked about people getting scans, and I was amazed how often they talked about people who are like, I don't want to know that information if you did the wrong scan on me. It actually made me think. I'm curious, like, how often have you run to people where you're like, I don't want to know all that other stuff, or you do and you're like, surprise.
This is what we found.
We often find things that you are not expecting to find. So the good companies want to know that information because they want to make good decisions. Other companies may not want to know that. And again, it goes back to my history of the micro world. Don't have a environmental monitoring program if you don't have the things set up to react to the results you're going to get, or you don't have a plan when you get a positive, because it's not if, it's when. And if you're not getting it, then you're not doing your job, as you're not doing your environmental monitoring program justice, because there's something there somewhere. And if you're not getting anything, then you're not digging hard enough. Same thing with farm material. If you're not prepared to get the results, we can talk you through some of this, but I had a pet food customer that they were looking for metal, and we found rocks. And we found a lot of rocks, and it turned into a much bigger situation than they anticipated. And it was a little bit funny because my FSQA friend, she called me and she said, I have to come down and I want to watch inspection because operations has decided you've went out to the parking lot to wash rocks off and send them to us and say that you found them. So when we find something, we give you a report that shows all the foreign material we found. So if we're looking for metal and we find bone, you're going to get all the results and we'll send it to you. So, and she thought it was funny, but the operations people seriously, I mean, thought that perhaps we were not really finding the rocks that we were finding. And so it was funny, but it turned into, instead of 2 loads of product, like 20 some loads of product. And so,
Wow.
Operationally wise, that was, and it came from their grain, so it's totally viable, all the things after they did investigation. But yes, are you prepared for the results you're going to get? Just like environmental monitoring or product testing.
That is really interesting because you told them something about their food safety culture, about their food safety programs that they haven't even really been looking at all. Mm-hmm. They had no idea until they sent you some product, and then they had to send someone there to verify because it was so. I mean, they obviously weren't necessarily like honed in on, we have a major rock problem from this supplier or for this product or whatever it happened to be. Like, you gave them some insights into that, which hopefully made them a stronger company.
Yeah, and that's our exact push for all of the conversations we have about supplier monitoring and supplier approval. These things, if you're monitoring them, you're not going to catch them all, but is there a way that you're making yourself better by doing this and getting in front of it and, evaluating which suppliers you really want to use?
Well, it sounds like too, you get some really interesting scenarios where you get to observe human behavior in a completely different way when people are maybe caught off guard or in this situation of, well, we've got all this product that we need to send to you. I'm curious, like, what have you noticed anything like patterns of, how people respond, or the difference between companies who you said some are, more on the proactively finding stuff versus people who are like, not.
Yeah.
So think about it on any situation that, seems like a crisis. Like when everybody's hair's on fire, nobody probably makes the greatest decisions. So, if you go back and evaluate it, a couple of weeks later and say, what could we have really done to prevent this? And again, when I'm talking to people, whether it's, at a conference or on a one-on-one level, when I ask, hey, think about the last time you had a foreign material incident, and you really start thinking about that, what did that actually do to you? You're talking about, hey, somebody had to come in on a Saturday. Was that super painful for this person? Or was it, getting a really, feel like you're under the microscope from, the VP of food safety or the VP of operations and the scrutiny that you got through that? Or was it a financial burden? Or how did that really affect you personally? And then how did it affect the product and the company like after that? Because affecting the product and the company is going to be substantial to some people, but to other people, it's just, hey, that's part of the job and whatever. Yeah. And when you hone in on how did that affect you? Like, what did it do to your job? Like, what extra stuff did you have to do? And those kind of things, you see a different response or reaction. And if you could prevent that in the beginning, then you have more buy-in from them, usually.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Because we feel, okay, of course, we're going to have some type of foreign material, right? Like, or we're going to have some type of thing where we have to throw a product away or we have to spend, additional money for external support. But when you think about, when this happened, how was your day? How was your week? How did this disrupt, the things that you had planned? What did it do to your goals? Like, once you start thinking about that, and, for people that have a team, what did it do to your team? And were they able to accomplish things, or did you have to push things back because you had this major event happen or you had this event happen? I think those are great questions, because a lot of times people don't think about that. We just think, whew, that was an event, right? Like it happened, and then we kind of move on from it versus really thinking about how did that impact us. And I think it just connects back to ultimately culture and leadership, where leaders who are able to reflect in that way, they see different things happening in their culture. And even to Jill's question around like people who are even ready for this, you know, even when a fire comes up, people who are ready for it, they're typically ready because they've had some issues, but they've reflected on what did we do well, what did we not do well, what are we going to do again in the future if something comes up. It doesn't have to be the same thing, right? But if something comes up that kind of puts us in this fire or whirlwind. So I think that's a really good point when you talk about clients who have prepared for these things.
And I think the other piece of it is the reality is, you know, are you producing a safe product? Mm-hmm. If your kids or your elderly parents were going to eat this or get this at a restaurant, or, you know, after you bought it from the grocery store and made it at home, do you feel confident and safe that you would want them to consume that product? And putting a real story or situation behind that, you know, your infant child or your elderly parent or grandparent could possibly, you know, consume this product. And would you feel the same way if you knew they were going to get it?
Yeah. You know, we talked about this a lot at IPPE. It's the whole, like, what do we tolerate? Because what we tolerate is what creates our culture. Yeah. And if our goal is to champion prevention, how would that look different? And it makes me wonder about, you know, being in the seat that you're in now, where you get to help people kind of navigate through this. When you see companies that you're working with, like, what does preparedness at its best look like from companies that are like, yep, we've done some work, but yep, we're also prepared perhaps for this crisis, where they've done work or they've prepared to be able to do work with Flexxray? Like, what does the best preparedness look like?
You know, it's all the things that you're prepared for any other piece of food production for. Like, are your programs in place? Are they being followed? Is leadership setting an example? Is it going from the top down? And then when something does happen, what are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to blame somebody else? Are you going to take ownership of it? After the investigation, the root cause analysis happened, after you get the results from Flexxray, you know, how does that change what you do going forward? And I think it's just that simple and that not simple on all levels, because, you know, like I said at the beginning, there's still people involved. Like, yeah, you can go over GMPs, you know, till you're blue in the face, but things are just going to happen. When an auditor comes by, they're going to drop something on the floor and pick it up without sanitizing it or throwing it away. I mean, that's just the way the world works.
You have to be prepared for that, right?
Yeah.
True. Right. And the difference between having those things and living those things is really that space of, like, what we tolerate. Like, are we okay? Like, that we're not ready, or that we are ready, or that we, you know, create patterns of behavior to support our programs, or are we like, we just pull it out in the crisis?
Yeah. I mean, are you doing it every day, or you only do it you know, when you have a customer show up, or you're getting an audit, or you have a complaint, so now you're doing an investigation, so you you know, making it look good versus this is the way we just operate every day, doing what everybody is supposed to do when no one's watching, kind of thing.
Right.
I'm thinking about it like, if I'm if I was back in one of my seats in a former role, and I'm like, whoa, I need to be more prepared so that I could actually work with Flexxray in the event to save product and to do those type of things. Like, what would I need to do if I was in that seat going, I want to be ready? Because I think what happens is, like, oh, we have another foreign material incident and we're just going to handle it. And oh yeah, we should investigate it, working with like a Flexxray or third party. But until it elevates to the top priority, it probably falls off and we don't. So if I'm in the seat where I'm intended to be prepared, what would I do?
Kurt is going to kiss you for this, Jill, because we have this new program that we're piloting on the West Coast. It's called Fast Track, and what it is it's really, you get set up to work with us before you have a problem. That way, when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't have to be doing all these things that you really don't have time for, and you're kind of rushing to call Jill and call Tia and call Paula to get all this information together so you can, submit product to us. So just to make it real kind of quick and easy, it's, hey, we'll fill out you'll submit all your paperwork to get approved as a customer. We'll run a credit report on you. You can even send us a couple samples. We'll give you a label so you can send the samples in to say, yeah, we could see this in case this would happen. Because we all know that you guys have a library of fun things that you found. And if one of them or a couple of them are reoccurring incidents and you didn't know that we did this, send it to us with a case of product. We'll tell you that we can see it. And then the next time this happens, which again, we hope it doesn't, knock on wood for you all, but it probably will. You're 3 steps ahead of the game, and you can have product, in a truck headed to us same day versus having to, contact us get you set up. You send us a sample. We got to wait for the sample to show up. Then we have to do the sample testing on it, all those things. So we would love for you all to contact us and say, hey, we don't want to use you, but in case we do, we're interested in Fast Track and we'd like to get out this set up. And all sample testing for us is free. You just send us what your foreign material is or what you think it is, along with a case of your product, and we'll tell you, yes, we can see it. No, we can't. And, that way you're set up to move forward in the event that this happens, and you don't have to be in the heat of the moment to wait and have people breathing down your throat. Hey, is this positive? Can they see this? How quickly can we send them sample or the product, on the trucks? When can we still get it to our customer? All those kind of things.
That's smart.
It alleviates all that decision making that you're trying to make in the middle of the fire, because last week the Real Talk show was about our effectiveness on decision making rapidly when we are faced with way too many of them and when they're complex. So we can take that away from an incident and be prepared, and I guess Fast Track. There you go, Kurt.
Yes.
But I think that's important to know. Otherwise, a service like this seems, I'm going to say, kind of out of reach because we're not ready to actually say, yep, we already know everything involved. So,
and Paula,
I would have known earlier in my career.
Yeah. And Paula, if someone's like, "Oh yeah, I want to be a part of this," do you all work with product that is ambient, refrigerated, and frozen?
So everything. We work for all. We work through all types of food, and we do have some other like cosmetic and different things like that. Where we have customers that use those kind of products too. But we operate just like a plant operates, except if you come visit us, which we always welcome, it's much cleaner and slower paced than anybody anticipates. But like if we have an ice cream load, we'll run that across 8 lines, like within 30-40 minutes. So there's no temperature abuse. We do the same things you do in terms of keeping temperature. We take temperatures at the beginning and the end of the pallet. We document all this. Everything goes back onto the same pallet that it came to us. So you have complete traceability. We do BRC audits. We welcome customers to come, observe what happens. But, essentially we're just an extension of your production facility and just a partner with you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, Paula, I'm curious because you shared a little bit that you've been, you've done quality assurance or QA, FSQA for a restaurant chain. You've been a quality manager. I know we worked together at Mary You. You're now in this space. You've gone through a lot of different things.
Yeah.
When you look back on your own journey, whether it's leadership journey or career journey, getting to this point, like what helped you move from through this with the ease and flow, or maybe it wasn't always ease and flow, but to get to this point? What do you wish you would have known? And I guess the other part is, what would you want to have told your younger self, or what advice would you give to others?
So in the seat that I'm in now and looking back, I think there's a lesson to be learned from every opportunity. I got some pretty hard feedback. It was around 2012, and I had just got a performance review, and it was like stellar. Like I got a raise. I rated, I don't know what the rating system was at that time, but I rated like off the charts. I was doing my job fantastically. And my manager at the time, she said, Paula, everybody thinks you're pissed off all the time, and I need you to be happier. And that's not really my personality. Like, that's just who I am. And so I had to start making myself say hello to people in the morning. I got to work before everybody else. And so I was like dead in working by the time everyone else showed up. When I sent emails, I'm like, hey, Jill, I need X, Y, and Z. Not, hey, Jill, good morning. How are you? Yeah. You know, those kind of things. And so I had to train myself to do that. So I would say in that was really, and in the moment, I'm not going to lie, I was mad about the whole situation. But looking back on it, that's one of the best pieces of advice I could have gotten, because I had to change the way I was approaching things. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm still, that's kind of my type A personality, I want to get things done. I make stuff happen, you know, whatever it takes to help my customer or my team or all those things, I'm going to do it. But sometimes you have to take a step back and really evaluate the situation and what did you learn from it? How can you do it better next time? That thing. And I think in terms of leadership, vulnerability is really important. And so I share this story all the time with people that I lead or coach or whatever. And then I also, you know, give other examples at times where maybe it wasn't in the moment, but I look back later and I see, hey, I could have done this better. I should have done this different. If I can prevent somebody going through a mistake or an opportunity that I've been through, I want to do that for them, but I also want them to know it's okay. Like, nobody's perfect. Everybody, you know, is going to make, I don't even want to say a mistake, but just an opportunity to learn something. And instead of like pointing fingers and all that, like, what can we do to not do this going forward? When operations comes to me now and they tell me whatever's going on, I'm like, okay, we can't fix what already happened, but what are we going to do next time going forward to hopefully prevent this again? Or what can we do better to make this, you know, situation less likely happen, and those kind of things. And I think, you know, in terms of making the environment comfortable to do that, I tell my team all the time, my number one goal is for my team to be successful. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to help them do that and give them the resources. But then it's up to them to take those resources and do what they want with them. But it's in their control. And my second priority is obviously my customer. And I ask all the time, how can I help you? Like, you know, what can I do? And then, you know, those two things together make your company successful. So if you're running on number one and number two, then number three just comes naturally, or, you know, kind of flows with the process. And so I take great pride in hopefully leading by example. And so I'm not going to ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do myself or that I'm not modeling to them. Like if I tell my sales team, hey, I want you to send video messages to prospective customers, but I'm not willing to do that, then you know, it has no bearing.
Yes. You know, I think when you talk about your leadership journey and like how you show up into this space, you know, I know your team feels that. I know you and I have had some conversations around this, and I know your team feels how you show up and, you know, how you model behaviors, and you're not going to put them in a situation that you wouldn't be there with them. I mean, people feel that difference. Just like when you got the feedback of, you know, people think you're mad. You know,
Yeah.
show people that you are not mad, at least so that they can approach you. Like just noticing that difference of how people respond. Right, we're human beings. We typically don't want to interrupt someone if they're upset, you know, or we feel like they're too busy. Right, like it just means we're just not going to approach them because they're already so busy. They already have things going on. I don't want to add to their plate. So just those like small shifts, right?
I think with that too, can you put yourself in the other person's seat?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you coming to every meeting with only Paula's agenda? Like, I only want to accomplish what's easiest for Paula versus what's best for the team, or what's best for the whole group, or what's best for the customer, even if it looks different than what's maybe easiest or best for you, because probably later down the line, it will be best for everybody, even if it's harder or more inconvenient for you at that moment. But can you, take off the Paula hat and put on the Jill hat and say, this is, really the best course of action overall versus, hey, this just makes my life easier.
Mm-hmm.
And in leadership, you have to do that all the time. And usually nobody even knows or notices, which sometimes is even harder. But you just have to be willing to do that. It's just like being a parent. There's no glory, from your 18-year-old son that you did X, Y, and Z because that's what your job as a mom is, versus that's their expectation of, you're my mom, so that's why you should do it.
You just expect it to happen.
All right.
Exactly. It's magic. It's magic.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we've covered a lot today. Paula, it's been so great to have you on because, I think about, like we talked about at the beginning, like we kind of framed this as foreign material and kind of the culture around it. But whether it's foreign material or some other system in your food safety, quality, or even operational culture, like it's feedback and it's a signal. And, it does tell us about the culture of what we tolerate versus where we like to prevent things. And really loved your insights today. So thank you for sharing those with us.
Well, it's been so fun, and I love you both. You guys are so fun to talk to and whatever. And hopefully, somebody got something out of what we discussed. And if you do have a foreign material incident and you need some help, please reach out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And even ahead of time. Like I said, I wish I would have known because, man, I could have kept you busy with all the stuff we had.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a brilliant program just to have people set things up ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, hey, if this episode sparked something for you today, you know what? We are going to have conversations like this at our upcoming Leadership Summit. Let me add this up here for you all. It's April 8th. We have a full day with a keynote that talks about grassroots movements because while we want culture to start top down, it doesn't always. But it doesn't mean that you can't have the agency and power to start where you're at. And we have all kinds of good things. So use this QR code if you're here with us on YouTube. And if not, Tia will put this in the show notes so you can.
Yes.
April 8th.
Yes, we hope.
And yes, and I forgot to say, email subscribers get $50 off through Valentine's Day. So show yourself some love and sign up for.
I love that. And with that, thank you so much for being here with us today, Paula. Truly a great conversation around being proactive, right? That was my major takeaway of how to be more proactive. And then your comments at the end around, it made me think about really servant leadership on how do I help support my teams, right? How do leaders support their teams in a chaos food industry, right? We know we have these issues. We're so grateful for leadership like you out there helping the industry, and for Flexxray, that this is an option for the industry. It did not exist, right, 10 years ago, that you are able to have the support. So we appreciate you sharing some light on that as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So That's our wrap. Leadership isn't a one-person show. And you all know culture doesn't grow on its own. It takes intention and systems. So just remember, culture doesn't change until leaders do. And we'll catch you at the next Real Talk.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.